There is a gesture so simple, so natural, that it almost disappears in a world addicted to noise, performance, and proving. And yet, this one gesture has the power to melt resistance, dissolve ego, and open a man in a way that force never could. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it does not demand attention. In fact, most overlook it because it does not try to be seen. It is presence, not just being there physically, but being fully there mentally, emotionally, spiritually. A woman who is truly present does not rush to fill silence. She does not scramble to impress. She does not chase validation through words or actions. Instead, she settles into herself. And in that stillness, something extraordinary happens. A man begins to feel seen, not judged, not measured, not tested, just seen. And this is where the shift begins. Because most men move through the world carrying pressure to perform, to provide, to solve, to lead. They are rarely given space to simply exist without expectation. So when they encounter a woman who offers presence instead of pressure, it disarms them in a way they cannot explain. This is the gesture almost nobody uses, because it requires inner discipline. It requires you to release the need to control the moment, to stop trying to engineer attraction, to stop reaching outward for approval, and instead root yourself inward. Presence is not passive, it is deeply intentional. When you listen not to reply, not to impress, but to truly understand, you create a rare kind of connection. Your silence becomes powerful, your attention becomes a gift, and your energy communicates something words never could. You are safe here. And safety is what opens a man. Not manipulation, not seduction tactics, not games. Safety. When your gaze is steady but soft, when your body is relaxed but aware, when your responses come from clarity instead of reaction, you begin to embody something timeless. Something that does not chase attention, yet naturally attracts it. This is softness as strength. The world has confused softness with weakness, but true softness is controlled. It is grounded. It does not collapse under pressure. It does not react impulsively. It responds with awareness. A gentle tone, a calm pause, a subtle smile. These are not small things. They are signals. Signals that say you are not in competition, not in defense, not in fear. And that energy invites a man to lower his guard, because energy speaks louder than words. Even a simple gesture like placing your hand gently on his arm while he speaks, or holding eye contact just a moment longer, can communicate more than 1,000 rehearsed lines. It tells him you are engaged, you are present, you are not distracted by the need to perform. And this is where real connection begins, not in grand displays, not in scripted perfection, but in quiet, grounded awareness. There is also power in how you speak. Not in how much you say, but in how you say it. When your words come from calm certainty instead of emotional urgency, they carry weight. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to argue to be understood. You become composed, and composure commands respect. Understand this clearly. What melts a man is not intensity, it is ease. Not chaos but calm. Not unpredictability but grounded presence. Because in your presence, he finds relief. Relief from the noise. Relief from the pressure. Relief from the constant need to prove himself. And when a man feels that kind of peace around you, he doesn't just notice you, he values you. But this cannot be faked. You cannot imitate presence while being internally restless. You cannot offer calm while being consumed by insecurity. This gesture begins within. It is the result of self-awareness, emotional discipline, and inner alignment. You must first become still within yourself. When you no longer feel the need to chase attention, you naturally become more attractive. When you no longer seek to control how you are perceived, you become more authentic, and authenticity is magnetic. So instead of asking, how do I make him feel something? Ask, can I be fully present in this moment without needing anything in return? That is where your power is, because the rarest energy today is not beauty, not intelligence, not charm, it is presence. True, undivided, grounded presence. And when you embody it, you don't have to convince anyone of your value, they feel it. In a world that constantly pushes you to perform, to prove, to impress, there is a quiet power that stands in complete contrast to all of it, the power of simply being. Most people enter interactions carrying an invisible script. They calculate what to say next, how to appear more interesting, how to gain approval, how to avoid rejection. This creates a subtle tension, an energy of striving, and that energy, no matter how polished the words or gestures may seem, is always felt. But presence does something entirely different. It removes the performance. When you are truly present, you are no longer trying to win the moment. You are not mentally jumping ahead or replaying what just happened. You are grounded in the now. Your attention is not fragmented, it is whole. And this wholeness creates a sense of calm that is deeply felt by the person in front of you. Most people underestimate how rare this is. To be fully present with someone means you are not distracted by your phone, your thoughts, or your need to be perceived in a certain way. You are not filtering every word through insecurity. You are not adjusting yourself to fit an expectation. Instead, you are settled within yourself, comfortable, aware, steady. This kind of presence communicates something powerful without ever needing to say it. I am enough as I am, and I allow you to be as you are. That is disarming, because when someone feels that they are not being evaluated or subtly judged, their guard begins to drop. They stop performing too. The interaction becomes real, honest, effortless. And this is where true connection lives. Performance creates distance, even when it looks attractive on the surface. It may impress temporarily, but it does not create depth. Presence, on the other hand, creates space. And in that space, authenticity naturally arises. Think about it: when someone is truly present with you, you feel it instantly. Their eyes are not wandering. Their body is not restless. Their responses are not rushed or mechanical. There is a sense of ease, a quiet attentiveness that makes you feel acknowledged without pressure. That feeling stays with you, and this is the difference. People may forget what was said, but they do not forget how they felt in your presence. The challenge is that presence requires letting go of control. You cannot be fully present if you are trying to manage the outcome. If you are focused on whether you are being liked, you are already outside the moment. If you are trying to impress, you are no longer connected to what is actually happening. So presence asks something deeper of you. It asks you to trust. To trust that you do not need to add anything extra to be valuable. To trust that silence is not awkward, but powerful. To trust that your natural state, when you are not forcing or pretending, is enough. This is where inner work becomes essential. Because without inner stability, the mind will constantly pull you back into performance. It will urge you to fill every pause, to over-explain, to seek reassurance. But when you cultivate stillness within, those impulses begin to fade. You become more grounded. And from that grounded state, your presence becomes effortless. You no longer need to think about how to act, it flows naturally. Your attention becomes deeper. Your reactions become calmer. Your energy becomes more centered. And this is what people are drawn to. Not because it is loud or attention-seeking, but because it is rare. In a world full of noise, the person who is deeply present feels like peace. So the real question is not how to perform better, but how to return to yourself more fully. Because the moment you stop trying to be seen, and instead allow yourself to truly see and experience the moment, everything changes. Your presence becomes your power. Softness is one of the most misunderstood energies in human connection. It has been wrongly associated with fragility, passivity, or lack of strength. But true softness is none of these things. In its highest form, softness is controlled, grounded, and deeply conscious. It is not the absence of strength, it is strength that has learned restraint. It is power that does not need to prove itself through force. A woman who embodies softness is not weak in her boundaries, nor is she uncertain in her presence. She is simply not reactive. She does not meet tension with tension. She does not meet chaos with chaos. Instead, she meets life with awareness. And this is what makes her energy so compelling. Because in a world where most people are conditioned to defend, argue, compete, and resist, softness stands out like still water in a storm. When a woman is soft in her energy, she is not easily triggered by external behavior. She does not immediately assume offense. She does not rush to protect her ego. Instead, she pauses. She observes. She chooses her response rather than being controlled by impulse. This pause is where her power lives. Softness is the ability to remain open without becoming unstable. It is the ability to listen without interrupting, to receive without resistance, to understand without immediately correcting. And in romantic dynamics, this creates a profound shift. Because many men are used to being met with defensiveness, analysis, or emotional intensity. When they instead encounter softness, calm tone, steady presence, relaxed body language, it interrupts their expectation pattern. It creates safety, and safety is what allows emotional walls to come down. But softness is not about suppressing truth or avoiding honesty. It is not about agreeing with everything or dimming your intelligence. That is not softness, that is self-abandonment. True softness is rooted in self-respect. It knows when to speak and when to remain silent. It knows how to express truth without aggression. It knows how to hold boundaries without hostility. There is a difference between a soft voice and a weak voice. A soft voice is intentional. It carries clarity. It is calm, but not uncertain. A weak voice is uncertain, hesitant, and lacking inner grounding. One comes from presence, the other from fear. This distinction is everything, because real attraction is not built on intensity, it is built on emotional regulation. When a woman can remain composed in moments where others would react, she naturally becomes magnetic. Not because she is trying to be, but because her energy communicates stability, and stability is rare. Softness also transforms how conflict is experienced. Instead of escalating tension, it dissolves it. Instead of reacting to every emotional wave, it anchors the moment. This does not mean suppressing feelings. It means feeling them without becoming them. There is a profound difference between I feel anger and I am anger. Softness understands this separation. It allows emotions to flow through without allowing them to define behavior. This is why softness feels safe. A man in the presence of true softness does not feel judged or attacked. He does not feel the need to defend every word. Instead, he feels an opening. He feels space to be imperfect, to be human, to simply exist without performance. And that experience is rare. But again, softness cannot be faked. It is not a technique you switch on. It is the result of inner alignment. When a woman is grounded in her own worth, she does not need to exaggerate herself. She does not need to compete for attention. She does not need to dominate the interaction to feel secure. Her security is internal. And from that security, her softness flows naturally. She can disagree without aggression. She can express desire without desperation. She can withdraw without punishment. She can engage without overextending herself. Everything becomes balanced. In this balance, there is elegance. And that elegance is what makes softness so powerful. Not because it is trying to influence anyone, but because it reflects a deep mastery of self. So softness is not something you add to your personality. It is something you uncover when you stop resisting yourself, when you stop proving, stop forcing, stop reacting blindly. What remains underneath is calm, clear, grounded awareness. And that awareness is irresistible, not because it demands attention, but because it offers peak deep listening, is one of the most underestimated forms of intimacy. And yet it is one of the most powerful emotional gestures a woman can offer. Not the kind of listening that waits for a pause so you can speak, not the kind that nods while thinking of a reply, but the kind that fully enters another person's world without losing itself in the process. Most people listen superficially. They hear words, but they do not receive meaning. Their attention is divided between the speaker and their own internal commentary, what they agree with, what they disagree with, what they will say next. This creates a subtle disconnect. The speaker feels it, even if they cannot name it. They feel that they are being processed, not truly received. But deep listening changes the entire emotional atmosphere. When a woman listens deeply, she is not trying to fix, advise, or correct. She is not rushing to demonstrate intelligence or insight. She is simply present with what is being expressed. She allows the words to land without interference. She gives space for the emotions underneath those words to surface naturally. This is rare, because deep listening requires the ego to step back. It requires the need to be right, to be impressive, to be in control of the conversation, to soften. Instead of dominating the exchange, she becomes a vessel of understanding. And in that space, something profound happens. The other person begins to feel seen at a level that is uncommon in everyday life. For many men, this is transformative. They are often met with evaluation, correction, or expectation. They are expected to be strong, composed, successful, or emotionally controlled. Rarely are they given space where they can simply express without being shaped or analyzed. So when they encounter a woman who listens without judgment, without interruption, without impatience, it creates emotional relief. That relief opens the heart. Deep listening does not require many words. In fact, it often requires less speaking and more awareness. A subtle nod, steady eye contact, a calm presence. These signals tell the speaker that their inner world is safe to unfold. There is no urgency in the listener, no pressure to summarize or conclude. Just space, and space is powerful, because in space, truth emerges. People begin to speak more honestly when they do not feel rushed or corrected. They go deeper into their own thoughts. They reveal emotions they might otherwise suppress, not because they are being questioned, but because they are being held in attention. This is where connection deepens beyond surface attraction. But deep listening is not passive. It is an active presence. It is a conscious decision to remain fully engaged without inserting the self unnecessarily. It is not about disappearing, it is about witnessing. There is a difference between losing yourself and offering yourself fully to the moment. A woman who practices deep listening does not abandon her identity. She strengthens it, because she is not constantly seeking validation through speaking. She is not competing for airtime. She is anchored enough in herself that she can allow another person's experience to exist without interruption. This creates emotional trust, and trust is the foundation of attraction that lasts beyond surface chemistry. When someone feels emotionally safe with you, they begin to associate your presence with calmness rather than tension. They look forward to speaking with you, not because you entertain them, but because they feel understood. Deep listening also sharpens intuition. When you are truly present, you notice subtleties, tone shifts, pauses, unspoken emotions. You begin to hear what is not being said, and this allows you to respond with accuracy rather than assumption. Your responses become more aligned, more grounded, more meaningful. But perhaps the most important aspect is this. Deep listening removes the need to perform. You are no longer trying to be interesting. You are not competing with words. You are not filling silence to avoid discomfort. Instead, you are comfortable with silence when it arises. You understand that silence is not empty, it is full of meaning, processing, and reflection. In that comfort, your presence becomes steady, and steadiness is felt. Because when a woman listens deeply, she is not just hearing a man's words. She is acknowledging his inner world. She is saying, without saying anything at all, you do not have to be anything other than what you are in this moment. And that simple silent message is what many people have been waiting for their entire lives. Emotional safety is not something that is created through grand gestures or carefully chosen words. It is built in the quiet consistency of how a person feels in your presence over time. It is the invisible foundation beneath attraction, beneath trust, beneath openness. And yet, it is the one thing most people overlook while chasing intensity, excitement, or surface-level chemistry. When a woman becomes emotionally safe, she stops being a place of unpredictability. Not in the sense that she becomes predictable in personality, but in the sense that her emotional reactions are grounded, stable, and understandable. A man does not feel like he is walking through emotional landmines. He does not feel like one wrong word will trigger withdrawal, anger, or silent punishment. Instead, he feels a kind of calm clarity in how she responds to life and to him. This safety does not mean the absence of emotions. It does not mean she never feels hurt, disappointed, or frustrated. It means those emotions are expressed without chaos. They are communicated without distortion. They are processed without turning into emotional storms that destabilize the connection. Emotional safety is created when reactions are not exaggerated beyond the situation. When a woman is emotionally unsafe, even small misunderstandings can escalate quickly. Silence becomes punishment. Disagreement becomes conflict. Expression becomes attack. Over time, the other person begins to shrink emotionally, becoming careful with words, hesitant with honesty, guarded in expression. The connection slowly becomes controlled rather than free. But when emotional safety is present, something different unfolds. There is room for imperfection. There is space for misunderstanding without collapse. There is trust that even difficult moments can be handled without destroying the bond. This is deeply attractive, not because it excites the senses, but because it calms the nervous system. A man in the presence of emotional safety does not feel like he has to constantly monitor his behavior to avoid emotional backlash. He can speak openly. He can be honest about uncertainty. He can express vulnerability without fearing it will be used against him later. And in that freedom, he begins to open more deeply. Emotional safety is not about being agreeable all the time. It is not about suppressing your truth to avoid discomfort. In fact, it requires the opposite: clear, calm honesty. A woman who is emotionally safe does not avoid difficult conversations. She simply engages in them without aggression, without emotional escalation, without losing her center. She can say "this hurt me" without attacking. She can set boundaries without punishment. She can express needs without desperation. There is a steadiness in her emotional language that makes even challenging moments feel manageable. And this steadiness is what builds trust. Trust does not come from perfection. It comes from consistency. When someone knows that your emotional responses are not random or explosive, they begin to relax in your presence. And relaxation is what allows authenticity to surface. People cannot be fully themselves in environments where they feel emotionally unsafe. They adapt, they hide, they edit. But in emotional safety, they unfold. There is also a deeper layer to this. Emotional safety allows love to mature. Without it, relationships remain in a state of tension or excitement, but never depth. With it, connection deepens over time. The nervous system stops bracing for impact. The mind stops preparing defenses. The heart begins to trust that openness will not be punished. This is where real intimacy lives, not in constant agreement, but in the ability to disagree without fear. not in perfection, but in the ability to repair after rupture, not in constant happiness, but in the ability to hold each other through emotional reality without abandoning the connection. A woman who offers emotional safety does not lose her strength, she refines it, because it takes more strength to remain calm in emotional moments than to react impulsively. It takes more awareness to respond thoughtfully than to react instinctively. It takes more maturity to hold space than to dominate it. And this maturity is felt. It is felt in the way she speaks when tension arises. It is felt in the way she does not weaponize emotions. It is felt in the way she returns to balance after difficulty instead of staying in emotional extremes. Over time, this creates a powerful association. Her presence equals stability. Her energy equals peace. And in a world where many interactions are filled with unpredictability, that stability becomes deeply valuable. Emotional safety is not something you announce. It is something you embody. It is revealed in moments of stress, in moments of disagreement, in moments where ego is tempted to take control. And when a woman learns to stay grounded in those moments, she offers something rare, a connection where the heart does not have to protect itself constantly. And that is what allows love not just to spark but to last. Intentional touch and eye contact are among the most primal forms of human communication, yet they are the most misunderstood in modern interaction. In a world saturated with words, explanations, and digital noise, these silent gestures carry a depth that language cannot replicate. They bypass the analytical mind and speak directly to emotion, memory, and instinct. But their power is not in frequency, it is in intention. A touch without presence is empty. An eye contact without awareness is mechanical. What makes these gestures transformative is not the action itself, but the energy behind it. When a woman becomes conscious of how she uses touch and gaze, she begins to communicate on a level that is felt rather than interpreted. Eye contact is the first doorway. Most people look at others without truly seeing them. Their gaze is fleeting, distracted, or self-conscious. It either avoids connection or rushes through it. But intentional eye contact is different. It is steady, grounded, and calm. It does not stare with force, nor does it withdraw in insecurity. It simply stays. And in that staying, something shifts. When a woman holds eye contact with calm awareness, she communicates presence without words. She is saying, I am here. I am not rushing away. I am not hiding. This creates a subtle emotional anchoring in the interaction. The other person begins to feel acknowledged at a deeper level, not just observed but received. But there is a fine balance. Intentional eye contact is not intensity. It is not about overpowering or creating discomfort. It is about softness within steadiness. The gaze is relaxed, not rigid. It flows naturally, breaking gently when needed, returning without hesitation. It is a rhythm, not a fixation. This rhythm creates emotional safety while also building attraction, because being truly seen is rare. And when someone feels seen without judgment, they relax. Their defenses lower. Their communication becomes more authentic. They are no longer performing, they are simply being. Touch carries a similar depth. Human touch is one of the earliest forms of emotional communication. Before language, there was contact, comfort, reassurance. So touch bypasses logic and speaks directly to the nervous system. But in modern interactions, touch is often either overused without awareness or completely withheld due to fear or uncertainty. Intentional touch exists in between. It is not about constant physical contact. It is about meaningful contact. A light touch on the arm during a moment of laughter. A brief grounding gesture when emphasizing sincerity. A subtle reassurance when words alone are not enough. These are not random actions, they are conscious expressions of presence. When touch is intentional, it carries emotional clarity. It does not confuse. It does not pressure. It does not overwhelm. Instead, it communicates warmth, connection, and groundedness. But what makes it powerful is not the touch itself, it is the absence of neediness behind it. There is no attempt to control, no attempt to force closeness, no hidden agenda. It is simply an expression of being fully present in the moment. This absence of need transforms touch from something physical into something emotional. And when eye contact and intentional touch come together, they create a powerful alignment. The gaze establishes connection. The touch reinforces it. Together, they communicate a message beyond words. I am here with you, fully, without distraction or fear. However, these gestures lose their power when they are used to chase validation. When eye contact is forced to create attraction, it becomes uncomfortable. When touch is used to seek approval, it becomes noticeable in its insecurity. People always feel the difference between grounded expression and performative behavior. True intentionality comes from within. It comes from being comfortable in your own presence first. When you are not seeking something from the interaction, your gaze becomes natural. Your touch becomes effortless. There is no tension behind it because there is no hidden agenda, and this is what makes it magnetic. Because grounded energy is rare. Most people are either too guarded or too eager, but intentional presence sits in the middle, open yet steady, warm yet composed, engaged yet not attached. Over time, these small gestures build emotional imprinting, not through intensity, but through consistency. A calm gaze that makes someone feel understood, a gentle touch that makes someone feel safe. These moments accumulate quietly, shaping how someone remembers your presence, not as loud or dramatic, but as grounding. And in the end, that is what stays with people, the feeling of being truly present with, even if only for a moment. The way a woman speaks is not just communication, it is energy made audible. Every tone, every pause, every word choice carries an emotional frequency that shapes how she is experienced. And among all the elements of feminine presence, the most overlooked yet deeply powerful one is calm certainty in speech. Most people speak from urgency. Their words are rushed, defensive, over-explained, or emotionally charged. They speak to be understood, to be approved, to be validated. And in that subtle desperation, even strong words lose their weight. Because speech that is driven by emotional instability does not land deeply, it scatters. But calm certainty is different. It is the ability to speak without emotional noise, interfering. It is not loud. It is not forceful. It does not need repetition to be believed. Instead, it carries a quiet authority that comes from internal alignment. When a woman speaks from this place, her words feel grounded. They do not push, they land. Calm certainty begins within. It is the result of not needing to prove your worth in every sentence. When a woman is internally anchored, she is not trying to convince others of her value through excessive explanation or emotional intensity. She knows what she feels, she knows what she means, and she expresses it with simplicity. This simplicity is powerful because clarity creates trust. When someone speaks without confusion, without contradiction, without emotional overextension, the listener relaxes. They do not have to decode hidden meanings or navigate emotional turbulence. They can simply receive what is being said, and this ease is deeply attractive. Calm certainty does not mean silence or passivity. It does not mean withholding emotion or avoiding expression. It means expressing emotion without being consumed by it. A woman can say "this matters to me" without raising her voice. She can say "I do not agree" without aggression. She can say "this is not acceptable for me" without emotional collapse or over-justification. There is strength in that restraint. Because emotional control is not suppression, it is mastery. It is the ability to feel fully while still choosing how to express what is felt. This creates a sense of emotional reliability. The listener begins to trust that her words are not random reactions, but conscious expressions, and trust deepens connection. It is the result of not needing to prove your worth in every sentence. When a woman is internally anchored, she is not trying to convince others of her value through excessive explanation or emotional intensity. She knows what she feels, she knows what she means, and she expresses it with simplicity. This simplicity is powerful because clarity creates trust. When someone speaks without confusion, without contradiction, without emotional overextension, the listener relaxes. They do not have to decode hidden meanings or navigate emotional turbulence. They can simply receive what is being said, and this ease is deeply attractive. Calm certainty does not mean silence or passivity. It does not mean withholding emotion or avoiding expression. It means expressing emotion without being consumed by it. A woman can say "this matters to me" without raising her voice. She can say "I do not agree" without aggression. She can say "this is not acceptable for me" without emotional collapse or over-justification. There is strength in that restraint, because emotional control is not suppression, it is mastery. It is the ability to feel fully while still choosing how to express what is felt. This creates a sense of emotional reliability. The listener begins to trust that her words are not random reactions, but conscious expressions. And trust deepens connection. Calm certainty also changes the rhythm of interaction. Instead of chaotic exchanges filled with interruptions, clarifications, and emotional spikes, the conversation becomes steady. There is space between words. There is thoughtfulness in response. There is intention behind speech. This rhythm creates presence, and presence is what makes communication memorable. People do not remember the volume of a voice, they remember how it made them feel. A calm, certain voice creates a sense of grounding. It does not overwhelm the nervous system. It does not create tension. It brings clarity. In contrast, emotional urgency often pushes people away. When speech is filled with desperation or intensity, the listener feels pressured. They may comply outwardly, but internally they withdraw. Because pressure does not create openness, it creates resistance. Calm certainty avoids this entirely. It invites rather than demands. It expresses rather than insists. It shares rather than seeks approval. And in doing so, it creates space for genuine listening. But perhaps the deepest aspect of calm certainty is this: it reflects self-trust. A woman who speaks calmly and clearly is communicating, without saying it directly, I trust what I feel. I trust what I know. I do not need external validation to confirm my inner truth. That level of self-trust is felt instantly, because people are drawn to those who are not internally divided. When speech is aligned with inner clarity, it carries coherence. There is no contradiction between emotion and expression. No hidden insecurity trying to surface through words. Everything feels integrated, and integration is magnetic. Over time, calm certainty reshapes how a woman is perceived. She is no longer someone who speaks to be heard. She becomes someone whose words carry weight because they come from stillness. People begin to listen more carefully, not because she speaks more, but because when she does speak, it matters. This is not about controlling how others respond. It is about aligning speech with inner grounding so deeply that communication becomes an extension of clarity rather than confusion. And when a woman reaches that level, her voice does not just communicate information, it communicates presence.